Hey guys, it's Wn8 here, and today we're talking about little sneaky piece of bread, MT-25. Let's go over most important stuff of this tank to know how to use it better. First of all, let's talk about primary LT stuff. We have average camo, not outstanding, and what's worse, our view range is horrible 370 meters, which forces us to use optics, ventilation and binoculars. There is basically not our choice if we want to be at least slightly competitive against higher tier light tanks. Our mobility certainly allows us to take any bush first, from where we can see everyone with binoculars. We have one of the best, if not best, mobilities among all tier 6 light tanks. Passive scouting is of greater priority in higher tier battles. In lower tier battles we can play more aggressively, and even getting spotted is usually not a big threat. Even if MT-25 is spotted, it's extremely hard to hit, especially from medium to far distance, which lets us do some active scouting as well, but keep an eye on enemy light tanks because there is no way you can outspot any higher tier light tank. You will always be spotted earlier. You need to predict where enemy light tanks are likely to be, and you'll need to avoid those areas if you're in mood for active actions, or if there is no way you can provide fruitful passive scouting. This tank follows the idea of AMX ELC's active scouting in some way. It can be quite successful in simply running back and forth near a dozen enemies if you control the situation well, if you have some terrain cover here and there, but it's not simple and you have to be very careful. It's not something that will be easy to do. Secondly, MT-25 has a very interesting gun which it inherited from T-34, Tier 5 Soviet medium tank. There is also a retarded autoloader with 40mm of penetration available to this tank, but we are not even considering that option. So, a very tiny alpha of 85 is compensated with great DPM. The reload is slightly greater than 2 seconds, and its DPM is third best among tier 6 light tanks after absolutely unpopular T-21 and premium Type 64, which has much worse gun stabilization than we do. The gun of MT-25 brings certain advantages and constraints. Among the advantages, great DPM allows you to pour a lot of damage into enemies with longer reload, for example some TDs and heavy tanks. Spinning a lone enemy heavy tank or tank destroyer has never been so much fun, as his hit points are vanishing as if the enemy is on fire. Also, missing a shot isn't that bad as you'll fire again in 2 seconds. On the other hand, dealing a lot of damage is very hard, as putting higher DPM into use is harder than putting bigger alpha. You'll need to spend a lot of time at the enemy to deal any significant damage, which is dangerous to you of course. So generally don't expect to deal a lot of damage on MT-25. It can definitely defend itself against our tier 6 light tanks, but generally don't count on much more than that. There are other tier 6 light tanks which are more capable at damaging. However, an isolated enemy is just a present for you to feast on. I specifically chose this battle to show, as showing some battles with passive scouting is really interesting. You can do that on any light tank, right? But this battle really shows what MT-25 gun is capable of in perfect conditions, almost. Another special thing about MT-25 is that it has some armor, from 40 to 45mm everywhere, which will help you withstand high explosives, but also will help you to ram enemy light tanks in case of necessity. However, try to avoid ramming at all costs, as usually it means simply unnecessary loss of so valuable for a light tank hit points. With MT-25 gun you can usually kill your opponent without ramming. And be careful if you ever happen to ram artillery. Don't ram heavy artilleries like Su-14-1 or Su-14-2, you'll kill yourself without dealing any significant damage to them. Instead, use your amazing mobility and small sizes and keep firing every 2 seconds on the move. You'll miss a third, maybe half shells, but you'll be practically impossible to hit. If you have a personal mission where you have to find, damage or kill several RTs, then MT-25 is definitely a tank to consider. Very quick, very tiny and with very dangerous gun. Exactly what you need for it. To summarize, I would say that MT-25 isn't definitely a bad light tank, although it's not liked by many players, but there are also some players who like it. Of course, I think there are fewer of those. So in my opinion, it's weaker than other tier 6 light tanks, and the problem is in poor balance of camo and view range. It has neither of them above average, and it's hard to compensate those with only mobility and size. Especially you feel helpless against higher tier light tanks, but even lower tier Chaffee can be trouble for us. When MT-25 gets rebalanced with the introduction of LT-10, it will stay on tier 6 almost without changes, but even though its tier of battles will be lowered to 6 to 8, still it will get 10 meters view range buff to 380, and MT-25 certainly needs this buff. If you found this video helpful and interesting, please like it so that more people will see it in recommended and in search results. I would be so grateful to you. Share this video with your friends and clanmates. If you're not subscribed, then it's the best time to do it. Make sure you check out my other videos, there is a lot of interesting stuff. Thank you for watching and see you around.